Rebecca Mayer, and I am the dance faculty here at Western. And so in addition to teaching dance classes, including tap dance, jazz dance, ballet, modern dance, a couple of other things associated with dance, I just directed Nutcracker 17, which played here at the auditorium. Did anybody see it? Okay, well thank you. I'm so glad you saw it. And actually, my friend Kyle in the back was very instrumental in making sure that that show happened, because he was behind the scenes with the ropes, making sure everybody was where they needed to be. But I'm also the choreographer for the musical that'll be playing here in April and May, Guys and Dolls. And next year I will be directing a dance program entitled Body of Work that'll play in the spring of 19. I teach dance, I perform dance, I also do a lot of scholarly research on dance. And so I'm really excited today to talk about the impact that social media has had on making dance accessible to all kinds of people, right? Really all you need these days to see great dance is access to the internet. Has anybody here ever been to see a professional ballet company? Okay, where and which?
In Portland. I've seen a few cats.
Okay, I'm from Portland, so that's really cool to hear. Yeah, Jennifer.
I've actually been to the New York Ballet.
You have? Okay.
Yes. You know, I have a good friend that works with the Met actually, so I go to a bunch of things in New York City.
Okay.
But it's, yeah, beautiful.
Well, and I think the thing about going to see professional dance that I think can be a little tricky is for a lot of people it just doesn't seem like something interesting or appealing. You know, why would I want to spend my time and money that way? Or, you know, I don't have an easy way to get to New York City, or I don't even have like the time to go to Salt Lake, or I may not even know that it's happening in Salt Lake, right? So what I want to talk about first, speaking of professional ballet, is this is an excerpt from the ballet Swan Lake, which you may be familiar with as it was the ballet featured in the film Black Swan, if you saw that film that came out a few years ago. So this is the American Ballet Theater, a professional company. This dancer is named Angel Correa, and he's considered, you know, to be one of the great proficient men in ballet dance. And as you're watching this, take a moment to observe what he's specifically doing and how it's going to be different from the next dancer that comes on stage. And this is a short clip, I promise. So this movement that this dancer is doing now, Jillian Murphy, this is a turn called a fouette turn, and it's considered to be a hallmark of technique and athleticism in ballet work. And those are not easy, by the way. And of course she's wearing the point shoe, which is, she's going all the way to the ends of her toes on that little hard box. Okay, so if you're looking at these are professional ballet dancers, what qualifications did they need to get their jobs, do you suppose? And I'm not looking for a right answer, just your hypotheses today. So what did these people need to get where they are? What qualifications did they need?
Physical fit.
They have to be physically fit, right? What else?
Years of training.
Years and years and years and years of training. So Jillian Murphy, the woman in this film, started dancing in Europe when she was 3 years old. And a lot of European ballet academies especially get kids in when they're really young. And if you've ever seen in movies or pictures that stereotype of like the old lady with a cane hitting them to be sure that they're dancing correctly, that's actually a very real thing. So they have to be physically fit. They have to have years of training. What else?
This would be crazy tough.
They have to be really tough, right? This is a really difficult career option. And in fact, it's interesting because if you're familiar with a lot of players in the entertainment industry that have gotten called out for sexual harassment, right, the Me Too movement, actually the artistic director of the New York City Ballet, Peter Martins, is being investigated for allegations of sexual harassment. And he has a reputation of treating dancers pretty poorly. And that actually dates all the way back to the choreographer George Balanchine, who was a prominent ballet choreographer and director in the late 20th century, treated his dancers so poorly that he discouraged the women in his ballet company from getting married or dating or having kids, And he also required the different women in his company to wear different perfumes so that he could tell them apart. Okay, so nice guy. Yeah, you have to be pretty tough to, what else? What are some of the other qualifications? So in order to get there, you kind of have to have access to world-class training, right? And so you're probably not going to get the kind of training you need for this in like a rural community or somewhere far away, right? You have to be willing to either uproot your life and move to a place like New York City, or you have to already be growing up there, right? So who can these artists reach? Who gets to see these people live and in person?
Right, but for social class.
Right, or people that are willing to spend the money on it, right? You said that you've seen some professional shows in Portland. How did you find out about those shows?
Social media mostly.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to that. You found out about them on social media. Generally, the tickets for these shows are really expensive. Yeah, so the cheapest seats to see a show like this are going to start around $50 and go all the way up into the 200s. So it's a little bit more expensive than a movie, right? So you have to be able to afford to see this stuff. And you have to be living somewhere where either a tour is going to come through or the company. So they have a limited reach. Looking at the man that was in this and the woman, what were some of the differences in their job descriptions and some of the differences between the things that they had to do? Do you remember any of the differences in the movements that they did? Yes?
The man did a lot of beats and lifts, and she did a lot of the spins and flappings.
Yeah, she did a lot of the spins and those fouette turns. So she also has to wear those point shoes. So she has to wear those shoes where she's balancing literally on the ends of her toes in a hard cardboard box. So it's interesting because in classical ballet, they really make a lot of distinctions between these are the movements that men can do and these are the movements that women can do. So, how many people have seen video of this girl? Has anybody seen this reposted on their Facebook or anything? Okay. Yeah, it is pretty awesome. So, she's doing that same movement, the fouette turn. Okay, she's a teenager, obviously not in the point shoes, right? But the fact that she could do that with such proficiency as a young dancer is pretty remarkable, right? So this girl now has 200,000 followers on Instagram. I'm going to show this again because I just think it's so cool that she can do this. And I had actually seen this video posted several times, and that may have to do with the fact that I'm in dance, so a lot of the people in my social network are dancers. But she's been featured in mainstream media. She's been on the Huffington Post. She's been on some of the morning talk shows. She now has 200,000 followers on Instagram. And so why? Why do you suppose she's become so popular? Why do people like this girl?
She's not the typical body type.
She's not the typical body type of a ballerina, right? She's not a tiny person, but she is very athletic. Obviously, she has the physical fitness to be able to do those movements. So why else? Why else would people get excited about her on social media?
She's young.
She's young. What else? I mean, I think you guys kind of nailed it, right? She's a young girl. She has an atypical body type. What qualifications did she need to make the video?
Why none? Well, she's in a class. I don't know.
Okay.
She has to have the ability that people would be intrigued by.
She has to be the ability, but there's nobody telling her that she can or can't do it, right? There's nobody standing in the way saying, yes, you get the privilege of doing this dance, or no, we're not going to let you in, right? So in terms of those kinds of qualifications, having to answer to somebody else, she didn't have to do that, right? All she really needed was a smartphone and an Instagram account and a YouTube account and to be able to do those movements, right? So she was totally in control of the fact that she got to put her work out there and reach so many people. So who is her audience?
Same age teens. But once it's released, everybody.
Teens, but once it's released, everybody, right? So I want to go back to those dancers from the American Ballet Theater. Oh, and also who can identify with her? We've kind of already talked about this.
Probably more people.
Probably more people can identify with her. Why can more people identify with her than maybe a professional ballet dancer in New York City or Washington, D.C.?
Because she's not professional.
She's not professional, so people can say, okay, I could be like her because she's just this young person in her hometown. She's not this elite professional person. Any other ways that people can identify with her? Eric?
She looks like the girl next door.
She looks like the girl next door, right? She looks like somebody that you might know. She doesn't have this, what some people might consider unattainable body type or appearance. So how many people have seen this video, have had somebody post it on Facebook, or they've become familiar with it somehow? Anybody? Okay, I've probably seen this video in my social network, but again, you know, my social network are dance and theater people. So this video lives on YouTube. It's actually part of a larger documentary that a professional documentary producer had been working on, and she decided to kind of feature this guy. So this dancer, Sergei Polunin, born in Ukraine, studied mostly in London, and he is kind of known as a loose cannon in the ballet world. I mean, you can see he's covered in tattoos, which is not typical in the ballet world, right? And he, in the media, was really open about his drug use and his promiscuous lifestyle. And for a long time, he was a part owner of a tattoo shop in North London. And so he was really caused a lot of controversy in the professional ballet world because, you know, this is not how dancers are supposed to be. He's very talented, but it's just, you know, he's this guy who's kind of rough around the edges and a rebel. And so he had quit dancing in London. He kept stopping and starting his career. And so this documentary filmmaker said, I'd like to shoot a segment for this movie I'm making about dancers. And she got the idea for this video. And so I didn't realize it was part of a larger documentary until I did a little bit more digging, because so many people that put things on YouTube are self-made, and it usually just comes from the person themselves and they have a smartphone or whatever. So any idea how many views this guy has on YouTube?
2 million.
Too many, okay. Or what, is that what you said, too many?
2 million.
2 million, higher. 10 million, higher. He has 22 million hits, 22 million views on YouTube. So, who, had anybody here seen it? This is actually really good for me to know because, you know, my personal bias, in my social network, I'm going to have people that are interested in this kind of material, right? So what qualifications did he need to make this video?
She needed a dancer.
Right, a documentary filmmaker needed a dancer, was interested in his story. He was already pretty well known in the professional dance world. Okay, obviously he had to have that athleticism. He had to have that fitness. Anybody here think that they could do these movements successfully? Right, it takes years and years of training, right? So, what do you suppose is the artistic intent in this video? What's the story they're trying to tell? Who are they trying to reach? What's the point they're trying to get across? Any ideas?
I just think the beauty of being different.
The beauty of being different. What else? I think that you really nailed it. I think it's about the beauty of being different. And this guy was like, instead of having to cover up all of his tattoos and, you know, have the perfect hair and everything, he had the opportunity to just be himself. So how is this different from the guy that was in Swan Lake? A lot of differences, right? What are some of the differences? Yeah.
He's doing his own thing. He's doing interpretive dance.
He's doing his own thing. He's interpreting something, right, to a popular song. It's not some stiff orchestral classical music, right? Any other big differences? I would argue, too, that it's a little bit less of traditional male movement, right? In Swan Lake, the guy was very upright the whole time. He was doing all of these perfect jumps and turns and stuff, and this guy's getting pretty down and dirty, raw into the floor.
And solo instead of a pair.
And he's solo instead of a pair, so instead of playing that, I love that you said that, instead of playing that traditional gender role of I'm going to show off the woman and lift her and spin her around, this is just him doing his thing, right? So why do you suppose that's appealing to the mainstream? Why do you suppose that gets him 22 million views on YouTube?
The connection. I mean, you can connect more with him than with, you know, a prim and proper, like, production, like Swan Lake.
Sure, you can connect more with him than a prim and proper production. Any other reasons why maybe he's so appealing, Kyle?
It shows you that you can be you instead of trying to conform to someone else's standards.
You can be you in art instead of trying to conform to someone else's standards. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned conformity because how many of you have seen the Macys Thanksgiving Day Parade? Okay, all right, a few of you. So these women, the Radio City Music Hall Rockettes, so not only do they perform at the parade every year and people can watch it on TV, but they do this show at Radio City Music Hall in New York City called the Radio City Music Hall Christmas Spectacular. And they perform it a few times a day, and I think it's kind of cheesy. And I've only seen a touring version. I've never seen anything there. So, observations about these dancers. What's going on here?
We're all a chorus together.
They're all a chorus
Same
together.
height, same build.
Same height, same build. What else?
Costumes.
The costumes are all the same, right? They're doing these really precise movements.
Shoes are the same.
What's that?
I said shoes, everything.
All the shoes are the same and everything. So, what qualifications do these dancers need to be hired?
Certain height.
They do have to be a certain height, and I will tell you from personal experience
Not mine.
that they are juking the stats on height. Because if you go online and you go to their website to get audition information, they say you have to be 5'6" to 5'10½". And when I was a little girl, I used to watch them on the parade every year, and that was like my dream job when I grew up. Like, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna keep dancing, I'm gonna go to New York, I'm gonna be a Rockette. And I'm 5'8", so I was tall enough, or so I thought. So at the time, when I was in college years ago, I looked a little bit more like those women. I was slimmer and more muscular, but I'm the right height, and I was, a pretty strong at that style of dance. So I went to the audition in New York City, and I get there, and there was all these, hundreds of women lined up outside to get in. And so the very first thing that they do when you go to a tryout for the Rockettes is they measure your height. And so being 5'8" and, kind of a broad build or whatever, I had always been the tallest or largest woman in any dance class or tryout I had ever gone to. So I go in there, and they go to measure us. And they said, "How tall are you?" I said, "I'm 5'8". And she measures me, and she looks at me, and she goes, "You're barely 5'7". It's like, okay. So I walk into the room, and I am the tiniest person there. And I was like, wow, now I know how short people feel. This is really weird. And I'm pretty sure I was the nicest person in that room. These women were terrifying. And so I didn't make the first cut, and I was really okay with that. But yeah, they have to be a certain height. Okay, they have to be proficient in dances, which is fair. Anything else you noticed about all those women?
Age.
About the way they looked? They generally kind of looked like they were about the same age. Okay? Most of them were white. To be fair, they did have blondes and brunettes. And I think there were 2 black women in that. Okay, so yay, that's diverse. But do you know what year the first black Rockette was hired? It was more than 5 years ago. Her name was Jennifer Jones, and she was actually hired in 1987. So that was before some of you were born, I think, but for a lot of us, that was within our lifetime. That up until then, they did not hire any black women to be part of this dance company because they thought that would be distracting. And they didn't allow the Caucasian women to tan because if their skin was too dark, then it would look like they were not white. So, yeah. So who are these dancers reaching? Besides being on TV for the Thanksgiving parade, who else gets to see them live? Tourists in New York, right? So you have to go to New York to see them. You have to have the money to see the show. You have to have the money to get to New York. You have to be interested, right? So they have a pretty limited reach. And what is the artistic intent? You've got all these athletic, tall women, these kind of skimpy outfits, dancing. What's the artistic intent there? What's the point they're trying to make?
I feel like it probably was different when it originated, but now it's just a matter of I saw the Rockettes. Do you know what I mean? It's because it's not an exciting or or unique type of artistic experience. They
Right.
do the same exact movements
Right.
every show that you go to see them.
So it's being able to say that you saw them, maybe kind of a status thing, right?
Yeah.
Were you starting to say something too? Okay, so, and I think that, you know, over time, also they're selling a certain type of femininity here, right? What is the statement that they're making about women?
Tall, skinny, and blonde. I always remember the Rockettes all being blonde too.
Yeah,
Like
they're
real life Barbies.
tall, the real life Barbies, right? Okay, so I've got something for you that's kind of the opposite of that. Oh no, this is the one that I can't put on the PowerPoint, but I can bring it up on the web browser. Okay. So, these women made this video. They're called the Syncopated Ladies. They're a tap group. Pretty much the exact opposite of the Rockettes dancers. Has anybody seen this or seen these women's work? You have? Okay. Online? You've watched this before? Okay. So, some different stuff going on here than the Rockettes, of course. This particular video has gotten 1 million views on YouTube so far. And these women have a lot of different tap videos that they've produced and put online, dancing to, you know, music by Beyonce, some of the more popular, I think that they did one to Despacito when that song was everywhere, still kind of is. So, anyway, you get the idea. I could watch these women dance all day.
They're very good.
They are very good. What else? Other thoughts, other reactions to these women?
Is this group more diverse or less diverse? There wasn't even one blonde in
More diverse or less diverse, right? And, you know, we don't have a hatred of people with blonde hair here. But, yeah, I think that woman's kind of blonde. But, yeah, obviously more diverse, right? What else?
More expressive.
More expressive. How would you say that they're more expressive?
More sensual.
More sensual. What else?
Different choice
Rhythm.
of clothing.
Different choice of clothing. The rhythm was more expressive.
They're more into it.
They're more into it, right? You can kind of tell that by their faces. You can tell it by the way they're kind of digging into the floor. So, yeah, other differences between these women and the Rockettes. You've kind of mentioned it with them being more diverse and more expressive. Any other differences?
Clothing choices.
The clothing choices are different.
Hair.
There's actually individuality.
There's individuality, and that's what I think is so cool about this group. They're all doing the same movements and the same rhythms, but there is more individuality, and there is that separation, or celebration, I should say, of diversity. And so what is their artistic intent? What's the message?
More inclusive than exclusive.
More inclusive than exclusive, right? I mean, you have to be a good dancer to dance with them, but it doesn't mean you have to be a certain ethnicity or body type or hair color, right? What else?
Looks like they're having more fun.
Looks like they're having more fun. I think so too. I've actually had the opportunity to take classes from some of these women, and they're really inspiring, really fun. In terms of the qualifications that they need, right? What did they need to make this video that got 1 million views and got them some notoriety? 1 million views, including some people in this room have seen it, right? What qualifications did they need?
Talent, training, and physicality.
They needed talent, training, and physicality. Yeah. What else? I mean, they had to know somebody with a camera, right? And they had to be able to get into that studio space, and they had to be able to afford to pay for the costumes, and they may have had to rent the camera or rent that space. But nobody was telling them, yes, you get to dance, no, you don't get to dance, yes, you get to be on the internet, no, you didn't get to be on the internet, right? So they definitely had to have the talent and the drive, but they didn't have anybody else telling them what they could or couldn't do. And so that's what I think is really interesting about, oh my gosh, it's freezing up on me. Look at that. So that's what I think is really interesting about looking at dance on social media that was created by dancers on their own, right? I mean, it used to be even within my lifetime. Before, does anybody remember a world before YouTube? Or remember a world before Facebook, right? So people didn't have access to this kind of stuff, right? So I think it's really cool that here in Rock Springs, Wyoming, where, you know, we don't have a professional ballet company here to go see, okay, but we can go see the dances and things like that and the shows here at Western or at the high schools or whatever. But the fact that we can have access to this material online, I think, is really exciting. One of the things that's really a big value of the dance program here at Western is diversity, and particularly body diversity. So it's this idea that you don't all have to look the same to study this, to be successful at it. What it really does take is these things that you were talking about before. You have to have the training and the talent and the athleticism and the drive to do it. Can you think of any other things, whether in art or entertainment, that that technology has democratized? Can you think of any other ways that being able to put something on YouTube or on social media gains people a wider reach, that they're able to get their message out? Any other situations of that?
Happens with music all the time.
It happens with music all the time, right? Well-known musicians putting their own work online, but also people that are maybe not so famous, rising to social media fame. What else?
Anything, pranks, you name it.
Right, pranks, etc. So people, the fact that now all it takes to reach an audience is that you kind of know how to do the technology, right? And that you have an idea and you're willing to follow through on it. So yeah, we see a lot of comedians, musicians, certainly dancers. There is a whole, I now require in a lot of my dance classes for dancers to find a dance on social media, a dance video by someone who's maybe relatively unknown, and analyze it and talk about what makes it so popular. And you know, technology has promoted the accessibility of the tools, right? So it's pretty easy now to get your hands on a smartphone, and it's pretty easy to use. It's pretty easy to upload something to YouTube, and even if you personally don't have the means to do it, it's pretty easy to get help with that. Right, if you attend a college, you can use the computers for free. There are some colleges that loan out video equipment to students, right? So really the fact that it used to be a long time ago, video cameras were super expensive and you had to know how to use them, right? And now they're just more user-friendly, they're more affordable, they're more accessible. So what do you suppose the Syncopated Ladies, these women that were tap dancing, the guy in the church building, the girl in her dance studio doing the fouette turns, what do you suppose makes those videos so popular? What makes them able to go viral, so to speak? Not looking for a right answer, just your ideas, because I don't know the right answer.
Value?
The entertainment value, right? They're kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
What else?
They're unique and different.
Unique and different. Yeah, definitely unique and different. What else?
They're free.
They're free. Yeah, you don't have to pay $50, $100, $200 a ticket to watch it. It's free. What else? So, any other thoughts or questions about any of the videos that we looked at, or dancers that are making their own content? Okay. Well, all right. Well, I am happy to wrap it up now because I know many of you have classes to get to at 1 o'clock. But I do want to thank you for attending. If you ever have any questions or want to see any of these videos or want to take a dance class here at Western, which by the way are open to all students. If you want to follow what's going on with dance here at Western, we do have a Facebook page, you can like us. And next Monday at 4 o'clock in the atrium, the dancers and the dance majors and some of the music majors are going to be doing a Black History Month tribute at 4 o'clock in the atrium. And so it's pretty casual. Come watch as much of it as you can. You know, feel free to bring your coffee or whatever. There will be some seating or you can stand and watch. but we'll be setting up a band and a dance floor and do some dances to songs by Black artists, and the band will be playing some songs by African American composers. So I encourage you to come check that out. It's free, it's unique, it's real people. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.